So today we're kicking off the afternoon with an exciting panel discussion called Exploring Causal AI's Potential in Responsible AI and Risk Management. I'm thrilled to welcome our panelists, Maria Axente, Head of Public Policy and Ethics at PwC, and Ari Cohen, Chief Data Officer EMEA at Macquarie Group. And we also have our moderator, Oliver Matthews from causaLens.
Cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the panel on AI's potential in responsible AI and risk management. I'll hand over to our panelists to do some brief intros, and then we'll jump into some questions. So maybe Ari, starting off with you.
Sure. My role is Chief Data Officer for Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Macquarie Group. If you haven't heard of Macquarie Group, it's the largest infrastructure financial manager in the world. Headquartered in Sydney, which means lots of 11-hour time difference and lots of calls at odd hours of the day. Started my career in data science and then moved into doing more data management, and these days data and AI management is a big topic and a big theme.
And Marie?
Maria Axente, I work for PwC UK, professional services firm, and my role is to look after AI public policy and ethics, but previously I've been looking after responsible AI. In fact, we are the first ever company to launch a product and a philosophy of responsible AI, and puts us in a good position that we've been looking into what responsible AI is and what it means for a bit.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much both for joining us. So Ari, maybe starting with you. The financial sector is somewhere where transparency and regulation are obviously key themes. What do you see as the most pressing challenges when you're trying to apply AI within the sector? And maybe as a follow-on, what do you see as causal AI's potential role in financial services?
So I think a key theme, what we've seen, I'd say in the last decade, is as AI's capability has started to increase and we've seen you're able to do more things with it, regulators and other people have noticed this, companies have noticed it and are looking to deploy it in new ways. And in financial services, and actually it's something that's playing out cross-sectorally, so we're seeing it across all sectors, there's concerns about controls and how do you manage and govern AI responsibly. So as of last month, we saw the EU AI Act come into force, and a bit like GDPR, a lot of people expect that will sort of set a watermark for AI management, and we'll see similar things, or AI governance, we'll see similar things come out from regulators in other countries. But we're in a phase now in financial services where the financial industry regulators are talking about what their specific approach is going to be to AI. So EU AI Act is across sectoral legislation, applies to all sectors. If you're in banking or any industry, if you're in health, your regulators are going to be having discussions about how they should be regulating AI in your domain. But all, of course, the question is how are you managing AI? How are you ensuring its responsible use for your customers? And these are very thematic topics in financial services and where I am at the moment.
Amazing. And do you see causal AI playing a role within that, or have you applied that in Macquarie Group so far?
Yeah, so causal, what I like about causal AI is so it's essentially generative AI in the type of transformer architecture that's at the heart of it. Everyone knows it hallucinates. Mathematically, it cannot be precise. So it's about how do you ground that and put controls around it. And I think what fascinates me about causal AI, and we saw it with the recent release of O1, is that logic and reasoning is sort of a grounding point for artificial intelligence. And chain of thought is not as formal as causal AI mathematics or reasoning, but we are seeing this trend towards, okay, we can throw a deep neural network at something. But for me, the trend of making it explainable, grounding it in something, whether it's through chain of thought or causal AI, which is more formal, is something that can be an anchor and make the technology more transparent, more understandable. And I think that's the opportunity.
Okay, amazing. And building on the Gen AI theme, Maria, responsible AI has always been a concern for companies, but with the advent of Gen AI, we've seen it kind of go straight back to the top of the priority list. And so I assume this is something you're seeing a lot with your clients at PwC.
Absolutely. So for a while, since we started in 2016, 2017 to explore what are the implications of AI, why AI is special compared with previous evolution of technology. And we discovered pretty much that AI is going to be extremely disruptive, transformational. It's pretty much putting a Ferrari engine on a Trabant chassis. It's going to blow up the chassis if you don't have all the parts necessary to cater for that engine. And we understood there is a role to think of how do we manage a technology that unique, that operates 24/7 at that scale, has a certain degree of autonomy and adaptability. And it was only in 2023, which is last year, companies started to prioritize and understand the negative implication of AI because they haven't seen it, right? But now they were able to be part of the supply chain of AI, playing with ChatGPT. They started seeing firsthand how he hallucinates, being able to experiment or try to jailbreak some of the safeguards, and suddenly became clear, especially for C-suite, that there isn't an option to have responsible AI practices on top of it. The engineering practices is mandatory. And that was like the aha moment for many of them, but the community has been gathering evidence and trying to make the case for the negative implication for quite a while. And then since we are here and we have this visibility, the question is how to do it, because there is always a risk of overdoing it and applying too many rules and safeguards that will obviously throw the innovation of guards. So how do you build that program that in a way mirrors your ambition with AI? We can't really talk about responsible AI if you don't do much on AI, and we've seen this with a lot of our clients, but also in the same time being able to recognize that this technology, Ari and I were discussing earlier about agentic AI and how no one really knows how fast will be coming and how disruptive will be. Disruption will be coming, you like it or not. So you need to have this agility to respond to those risks. Financial services probably is one of the best prepared industry because they're highly regulated. They have a robust risk management approach. But if you go in outside financial services, you go in private sector, you go in retail, you kind of have a weaker and weaker risk management mentality. So you need to first of all educate, again, this is not optional, this is not a nice to have, it's a must to have, and then deploy it in such a way that is balanced and proportionate and agile. And I think that is the hardest bit. But again, Gen AI has at least gave us a peek into how disruptive it can be, but also how to stop that speed of disruption by putting the human back in control. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the approach going forward always, is not allow the AI to go too far ahead before us coming and checking if that's right with our values, with our objectives, and so have you.
Okay, so it's about balancing how do we push innovation forward without going too far ahead and sort of bringing in risk or unnecessary risk into the process.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. And I guess amongst your clients, have you seen an interest in causal approaches, or are they taking kind of a different view into this?
To be candidly honest, no.
Okay.
Mostly because what I see is responsible AI programs rather than the full extent of the type of AI that's being built. However, when I researched for our panel and I was thinking, why could causal AI be such a massive difference to what we do in responsible AI, is because one of the key issues that responsible AI programs try to solve is like, what are the implications of the AI system? Not just right now. We know that there are some implications right now in terms of potential to discriminate, potential to create or further exacerbate inequality. But what will happen on long term and even medium term as we see those systems increasing their autonomy and adaptability? And I think from that perspective, I can see causal AI being part of the solution rather than being the problem. So what we're trying to do with responsible AI is actually, is the solution to the problem the AI is displaying, is exhibiting this implication, those type of impacts, causal AI can help us identify what's the root cause of discrimination and bias. And we kind of have a bit of a understanding, but it's quite fuzzy and it's not as precise as it should be to say, in terms of discrimination, that's the reason we ended up discriminating in some cases. And we've seen so many AI systems that have been developed with the best engineering, with the best known to date responsible AI practices, being chatbots, being AI hiring assistants, that turn out to be discriminatory. And the question was, but why? What have we done wrong?
Cool, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ari, in your role as a Chief Data Officer, how do you balance this kind of trying to push innovation far forward and roll out new things into the organisation with the natural risk that comes with these new technologies?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think all companies by their nature are going to be seeking the reward that AI has to offer. How can increase revenues, increase efficiencies, increase automation, and at the same time, many companies, particularly companies in sectors like financial services, insurance, healthcare, where the risks are higher, have more developed risk frameworks. So in my role, working at the bank, we've got established 3 lines of defense practices. So whereas on the one side I wear a hat and encourage enablement to the technology, how can we get all the benefits out of it? I'll also make sure I put on my risk management hat and think, okay, what are the preventative controls that we should be talking about? What are the detective controls that we should be talking about? And I think it's still very early days in terms of AI risk management and the type of practices and processes that companies are going to develop around it. Again, if you go back to privacy as an example, when data privacy first became a thing, everyone was like, oh, is this a thing we need to do now? Didn't realize we needed to do that. And you look at it today, all of the controls are in place, all of the processes are in place. We're still seeing some companies fall short, and it's still a challenge. I'm not saying it's gone away, but I think with AI, we will similarly see a control framework that gets built around AI. We'll still be able to go after all the rewards and huge potential AI technology can offer us as a society and in banking. But I think we'll also see that risk management framework continue to develop, and it of course needs to.
Okay, maybe moving on a little bit to how we manage this within the organisation. And so, Maria, often the technical side of AI and the ethical side of AI are kind of addressed by different sets of stakeholders. And so what role can kind of the technical experts play in ensuring that AI is rolled out responsibly? And what role can the more kind of ethics-focused stakeholders play to make sure that innovation is not stifled?
A huge one. And many engineers might not like my answer fully, but ultimately, when it comes to AI, we need to be thinking of having a clear accountability framework, right? Who is in charge of which part of the AI ecosystem? Because we've evolved our understanding of AI from purely a technology or engineering product into a fully socio-technical ecosystem. And that was quite a bit of a journey we've taken in the last 6-7 years to move from defining AI as an engineering asset to defining it as a socio-technical system, which is so important. And in that one, we need to be able to define who's responsible for what, especially when, again, agentic AI is coming. That was going to throw everything in the air, from liability to managing risk. It's even more important for us to have a clear view. However, when I'm always advocating, it has to be a proportional accountability. You can't always go back and blame the engineers when a system or an AI system goes wrong. It might not be similarly with what happens, when a plane crashes or a car crashes, and you will say it's an engineering fault. You need to be able to look at the whole ecosystem because AI is so intrinsically linked to its context is operate. So first, having this clarity about an accountability structure. Secondly, it's about transparency, but it's not just about having the right information. It's how do you communicate? How do you build the dialogue? for a long time has been this disconnect between the technical world and the business world. I have a business degree, I've been running businesses, and I came from technology with this business background. And I've seen myself as a bridge, having had to learn the technical language. I still struggle, still kind of a complex Klingonian language, but translate it back to business because that's where the decisions are being made. The technical experts, and I've seen some of them doing brilliantly the journey back in the other direction than myself, doing the same, is being able to demystify and dissect those very complex engineering details so that those in decision position are able not only to take informed decision, but being able to have a bit of a dialogue. Because business understands technology, engineering doesn't, and vice versa. So secondly is about communication. And thirdly is about incentives, right? So why would I do the right thing? And I think that is a more of philosophical question and leads back to what are the values of our companies. When you have a established company like ours, 170 years old, you have very robust corporate governance and ethics structure. But as you go towards the small, medium enterprises, very much the values are the ones fostered by the founders. And you have to have a very strong moral compass that will end up defining the company culture where good decisions are being made. We won't be able to really develop AI that's truly ethical if we rely solely on regulation, on hard rules. We need to be relying on good people doing the good thing.
Okay, yeah, makes a lot of sense. And so the way we think about this at causaLens in terms of, to your point around bridging the tech and the business stakeholders, we have nice frameworks for sort of infusing domain expertise into models alongside the kind of data-driven approach. And so maybe a question to both of you just to finish off, and then we'll ask some from the audience. But how do you think about it being a case of technology choices when it comes to bringing in responsible AI, and how much is it more about frameworks and governance and kind of things aside from the technology that you've chosen?
So my answer there would be, my thinking would start with the people. So I suppose like any good technology design starts with people. Start with frameworks that are around people. What are our accountabilities? What technology will be built around us to do things we want it to do? Once you've established a framework with your people, then you go and you seek out technology that's going to enable it effectively and as efficiently as possible. Technology, in my experience, can help when it comes in locally and solves a problem fast. But when you want to do it at the enterprise scale, you sort of need to decouple it from the tech first and then go seek the tech second.
Look, when you travel to a new country, a destination, you need a map. So you're not going to go without having a bit of a structured approach of how you get there.
Yep.
It's the same with the frameworks. We kind of need it right now because we are in uncharted waters. So we need that. But in the same time, we need to be thinking two layers. One is the product layer. It's like where you're going to build a product and you're going to apply it for specific problems that need a solution. But the second layer that's probably a bit ignored, especially in the tech sector, is the disruption it brings to the world we know it, which is how do we need to adapt what we do, our organizations, our ways of life, in a way that will cater not just for the AI as a solution, but AI as a disruptor. And I think we're nowhere near to be ready for that. We are very good of applying those frameworks at the product level and say, this is a problem I'm solving, this is a solution, AI being part of it, and that's what I need to do to ensure that everything works accordingly. But when we look at the ripple effect it's going to have on how we operate, we don't know what to do about it. But we're doing a better job, definitely. And having been part of the responsible AI conversation for those years, I've seen how fast the conversation not only has evolved, how much we've learned to collaborate with each other, and how better prepared we are even than we've been 2 years ago.
Okay, amazing. Thank you very much, both. I'll now hand it over to the audience for some questions. I think over to you, George.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much. We've got a couple of questions coming in. I think you've definitely touched on some answers here, but maybe some clarifications could help. So first question is, risk management at organizations is often seen as a blocker to new tech adoption. Is there a way to frame risk management as an enabler for new tech like AI?
It's a very good question and a very valid one, I would say. And the answer, my answer will be, when you think about building a car, I like driving. Would you put that car on a road without testing it, without putting airbags and seatbelts and making sure that the brakes are working? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't put a plane in the sky and fill it with passenger if you wouldn't go through a lot of safety. That's the role of AI risk management, is to make sure that the digital products, even if they are in the virtual digital world, will not end up harming individuals, groups, and the planet. So as we have done, we have gone through this process of making the cars and the planes and the food safer, everything safe around us. We have to do it for AI. So it's not negotiable. And in fact, a good and robust risk management approaches will allow us to be much more innovative and accelerate not only the innovation but also the trust we put in this technology.
I would agree with that. The brakes are there to make the car go faster. When you zoom out, you can see that picture, and it's sometimes, depending on your industry, you might remind someone, we can't operate without a banking license. We need to make sure that we can manage the risk. When people, yeah, I would say typically, if you're trying to get that message across of risk management as an enabler, help your stakeholders zoom out a little bit, because they're probably just feeling like, this thing's going to take me another 3 months.
Amazing. Final question here. Social norms vary across the world and ethics evolve in time and differently in different cultures. To what extent can responsible AI be consistent globally?
Wow, what a good question. Thank you. Thank you for asking it. Where do we start? I think it's the realization how many different value systems exist around the world and how we ended up, to a certain extent, not really accounting for them in the early stages of responsible AI. However, in 2021, UNESCO has worked with hundreds of, not thousands of experts from around the world, representative of 189 countries, because I think US was out of UNESCO at the time, to draft the global universal ethical AI principles. And it's a very good start. However, those principles still reflect a very Western approach to ethics. There's much more research and also worked in other parts of the world, specifically in Africa, to determine what is their value system. Obviously, they haven't had to think about it, bless them, with the history they had. But that was the perfect moment for them to come together and to actually rethink is what are our values and how do we want those values to be reflected in AI we build, but also the AI that's being imported from the Western country. But I would say the best start we have right now is this UNESCO AI ethics principles that have been now used to inform national strategies. We also had the OECD principles that, again, have been informing the work of the regulators. So there is this harmonization that happens, is a bit slower. However, I will still encourage countries and regions, before embracing those, to start asking the question, what are the values we stand for, and how do we want AI to reflect our values or not?
And I might just add to that, I think there'll be differences with how various countries' value systems look at AI. But I think a core one will be AI is here to serve people, and as use cases bear more risk, I think we agree we need safe deployment. So it's fine if I'm using AI in e-commerce, but once I've got AI embedded in a nuclear power facility, well, that's a very high risk deployment. So I think we need to make sure our AI is safe. And there'll be differences, but I think there'll be some common ground across the world.
Amazing. Thank you very much, everyone.